about CULT DAO. CULT DAO has got a lot of marketing and branding to it. So as we go through this, we'll have a critical eye and kind of go through the whole project and see what's the good parts, the bad parts, what we can pull to other models, how they've done things, and their entire process of how stuff goes within CULT DAO. As all disclaimers, this is not financial advice. If you invest in any product that I recommend, you will lose everything. I'm a degen. If you are not, be careful with the things that you buy going through. So anyone who wants to join the cult was asked to read the manifesto, which is like an 18-page paper full of V for Vendetta quotes, Fight Club language, the Matrix, Karl Marx, and it kind of takes the reader through a journey of the ethos of cult and what the model is. So it's like a light paper with a story. So they've done a really good job of going through this process to make it a little more fun and a little more, I would say radicalizing, try to get you to feel a lot of passion when you're reading about this project. But links at the bottom of this. I'll send the slide deck out at the end, so feel free to go through and read it. It's a good read. It's a great example of how to do a really interesting branding package for a crypto project. But yeah, full of these crazy Mario Savio quotes and things about breaking the machine of the world. So exactly what is CULT DAO? It's a decentralized funding mechanism. So they call it decentralized venture capital. That is essentially what it is. But what makes it different from other protocols and other investment platforms is that there is no control. There's no human interface. Like the code has been launched, the contracts are in place, and there is no keys. The keys are burned. So this thing runs as it will forever, essentially, until it either no one uses it anymore or the servers are destroyed. But anyway, it's created by the pseudonymous personality, Mr. Homodulus. I had to listen to Crypto Sapiens with him to understand how to say that name properly. So Homodulus, like homodulus. Yeah, so totally self-running, decentralized venture capital platform. They've got two different roles. They've got the guardians and the many. This is a cool model of doing governance. So their top 50 cult holders can make proposals, but they can't fund them. They can't actually vote the process. So there's no voting rights to the top 50 holders. No whale can come in, make a proposal, and then pile all their tokens on. They can just go ahead and make the proposals. Then the many, everybody else who holds cult tokens. So when you stake your cult, you get decult tokens, and these decult tokens are your voting rights. And then you're the ones who actually vote on the process. So if you have a proposal you want to get pushed through, you have to take it to one of the guardians, make your case. They can post the proposal and go through. As you see, everything here is still branded. So the first rule cult, we talk about cult. Talking about Fight Club, that's more language, keeping that revolutionary vibe going on through all of this. You'll see in the top right, there's a really lot of community art. So there's a lot of groundswell and grassroots around this project. So there's tons of community art. So I kind of threw as much in this presentation as I could so you can see kind of the cool stuff they're doing over there. But how do projects get funded? It's pretty vague. You must fight centralization. You must advance the cause of decentralization. And you must directly benefit a noble cause. And they even state in their documents, what is a noble cause? Well, the community decides what's a noble cause. Requirements: proposal must contain a total supply of what the protocol or the protocol token. So basically how many tokens they're getting for the 13 ETH. All of their investments are done in 13 ETH chunks. So if you want to go ask for 50 ETH, they're going to tell you no. You can apply for multiple rounds of 13 ETH, but you can't get any more or less. You can't go less than that either. That's the funding package. It's built into the contract. Super simple. Any requirements from a proposal must have the investment, the tokens being offered in return for the 13 ETH, an audit of their token and contracts, and then the burn and distribution plan, which we'll get into in a minute.
Joe, can I ask a question?
Yes,
the magic number of 13 ETH is just marketing stuff. So somebody came up with the intelligent idea, or is there something behind it which I too dumb to understand?
It's a great question, actually. I don't have an answer for that. There was nothing in the documentation that I read through that explained why, but I will actually look into that. It's a really interesting reason of why that number was chosen.
Okay, thanks.
No, thank you.
I have a question about the guardian. I know some who've already been selected guardians, but my question is who decides who the guardians are? Because the top 50 cult holders don't become guardians. Like guardians outside of cult have been made guardians and given a bunch of cult tokens.
Interesting.
So I was just, yeah. I mean, even what's his name? David Hoffman from Bankless HQ said that on the podcast, and I know a few others who are guardians who are not part of cult. So
I wonder if they gave
it could
him
be a marketing thing.
This marketing, yeah. Exactly. That'd be my theory as well. They were just given enough Cult tokens, because there is a threshold. So if they are a guardian, they have to be one of the top 50 cult holders, but it might just be that they airdrop them or maybe give them access to a wallet that would give them the right to do it as a marketing standpoint.
Oh no, they definitely got them. They got the tokens. They got
a
shitload of money.
Yeah, and also I was going to say, to speak to that, they also what David talks about too, which is really interesting, is the social shaming around the the guardians, where they did airdrop them to random people, and some of the guardians started like dumping the tokens, and then they would get social shamed on Twitter. It's kind of just an interesting concept.
Don't go against the cult. The cult will come after you. All right, so in the actual contract, and all the documentation, here's the VC nitty gritty. I'm not going to read all of it, but it's just to give you an idea that the guys Mr. Modulus and the team who built this, they've obviously thought deep through this process. So there's a ton of information about what can be funded, how it can be funded, what must be applied to it, the audit of the contracts, their distribution plans. So the actual contractual language is deep. And feel free to read this if you want to down the road. I'll share this out when we're done. This I will read out, though, because it's kind of important. This was the statement of when Cult was taken out. And my main concern is from Mr. Modulus, the creator. Again, we don't know if he's a single person or a group of people. It could be a Satoshi scenario, but he's fully pseudonymous. So my main concern has been how to launch the token. People are fickle, naysayers say nay, and we couldn't do it perfectly even if we wanted to. I have spent money on getting CULT DAO up and running. I want to be successful, so how should I market it? What should my involvement be? So here's what I've decided. I will launch a token sale without any marketing spend. 50% of the raise will be locked for liquidity. I will reimburse my expenditure, and the rest will be spent on a one-time marketing to spread the message of Cult. After this, I will sleep and leave the community and the many and the guardians to watch over the cult. Now, I'm not sure if how true this is, because the product's been live for 4 months now, and Mr. Modulus is very active in the Discord. I actually asked some questions yesterday to help me refine some of my thinking on this. So he's still there, still hanging out. I'm not sure if he's voting on proposals. Is he making proposals? Is he just there in the Discord helping the community? There has been no, mission statement about what his involvement will be going forward. And I say he only because he uses a voice modulator. It could be a she with a voice modulator. Who knows? So this distribution, again, heavy on the marketing with all the sixes and the 6 trillion token supply here. But lots of 666s to get that branding and messaging a little deeper in. But the launch price is obviously way less than a penny. It's super, super micro token. Investment, 63.5% of the treasury is set aside for investing in projects. When I was going through the proposals and seeing what had been funded so far, I saw some charitable donations, and I was like, that's not a venture capital. But when I found this token distribution, I saw this route down here showing that there's actually an earmark for giving to charity. 6.3% distribution. This is, we're talking about themes. This is where that whale money went to, where I guess they've airdropped to people to go ahead and pick guardians. So that must be from that slice of the pie. Marketing spend, which should actually be 17, because this 5% burn up here really should be part of the marketing, because they started burning tokens as soon as the protocol was launched and advertising it heavily on Twitter. So they've begun their own burn process internally, which they start to eventually go into the mechanism of how it's burned as well. But they're using this burn to get more people involved. And hey, look, we're already burning tokens. So lots of marketing, and then partnerships with other DAOs, other people to get that running. So here's the model. I'm really happy to have it on the white paper, so I don't have to draw it myself. This is a really simple yet really elegant token design. This is definitely somebody who's done tokens before and wanted to make something that was simple but really effective. So top left of the model right here is probably the most important part of everything that happens here. The smart contract is coded that every time a user transacts with Cult, a 0.4% tax is taken, and it goes back to the treasury. If I send Hunter tokens, 0.4% goes to the treasury. If I throw it on Uniswap as an LP position, 0.4% of the tokens are taken on as tax. If you deposit it to an exchange, every time a DEX transaction takes place, this is constantly taxing the system and refilling the treasuries. The theory is as long as Cult is being traded, sold, bought, moved around the ecosystem, the treasury will always have money to keep investing in projects. The only thing that would kind of put a hamper in this system, we talk about understanding tokenomics design, is that if you're on, so they're listed on KuCoin right now, if you're trading on KuCoin and trading it inside of KuCoin, there's no actual tax taken because the token's not leaving that hot wallet. The exchanges have their own wallets, so once the transaction's happening, it's not your token, it's their token. So when you buy and sell on KuCoin, no tax is being taken because there's not a tax on KuCoin. It never left the wallet. It never hit on chain.
Just
so that's one thing to make sure.
On that topic in particular, do they have any preventions from smart contracts holding the token so that you could do exactly the same thing by wrapping the token on chain?
Interesting. That's a great question. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be my question as well, because I think the text is like like baked into the smart contract, and every time a transaction is made, then like the smart contract is firing up, and if you wrap it, then there's no firing at all, I guess, right?
Yeah, that's interesting.
that would
wrapping
be-
it, I'm not sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Man, solid questions, y'all. You guys came with the fire today.
So this class pays attention, joking.
That's it. That's great. It's all these transactions are going back to the DAO treasury, and then this is how the actual magic happens, right? So when one of those guardians submits a proposal, the many vote on it, it gets passed. The treasury takes 15.5 ETH worth of CULT tokens, and then sends 13 ETH to the investee, to their wallet, and then 2.5 ETH worth of CULT tokens is purchased and then burned. So literally every time a proposal is being funded, they're burning 2.5 ETH worth of CULT tokens, just gone out of the supply. And then the really crazy thing that happens is if when the company gets the investment, right? So what they're doing is they're go ahead and doing a pre-sale. So if they're investing in a new protocol, they're going to get protocol tokens in return in the smart contract, and then they're going to hold that for whatever time the time lock is. So we'll just say an example, they got involved in the sushi pre-sale. So they had a bunch of sushi tokens laying around, say that 13 ETH investment they made bought them 10,000 sushi tokens, which is the wrong math, but for argument's sake, we'll use that. And they had those 10,000 tokens. And then as soon as that 1 year lock on those tokens expires, CULT would then sell all the sushi back to CULT tokens. 50% gets burned, 50% goes back into the staking under this top left model over here that goes into the people who are staking their CULT tokens as interest. So the idea is that as these investments are paid back, it's going to go directly to people who are staking the CULT tokens. Right now, the APY on it's 15%. But the idea is if a bunch of investments come back and they hit a couple of unicorns or big ones, that APY could become 300% because that's how much extra CULT is in the system. And then the whole idea is this is a self-reinforcing scenario. So these investments are going well. They're burning a lot of CULT. The price is going up. The APY is going up. More people want to buy it. More people pile in. The price gets higher. It's an ultra deflationary token model. So this flywheel of marketing and price and APY and all of it should play into each other to kind of propel this project forward if it works the way it's supposed to. Flip side is all of these investments could just go to zero and be worth absolutely nothing. And maybe the wisdom of the crowds isn't a very good way of doing venture capital. But even then, this 2.5 ETH of every transaction is still being burned. So there's still a buyback and burn mechanism, even if the investments don't go well. And then the other side of this is, say, if the treasury is ever drained, all the ETH has been taken out, it's done. Proposals can still be passed, but they're queued. So then once the treasury is reimbursed with up to 15.5 ETH again, then it automatically goes through. There's a theoretical world where the treasury is empty, and then there's 100 proposals sitting there waiting for funding. And then as that funding comes in, they're slowly paid back out as it gets refilled. I'm going to pause and open it up for questions. This is kind of the meat and potatoes that we're talking about today, of this kind of weird, simple, elegant tokenomics model of just very ultra deflationary buyback and burns.
Yeah, I just had one real quick one, which is on timing. So, I mean, you've got all these proposals that are queued, but if it took time to get there, maybe the investment opportunities have passed. And presumably you could just vote no on them, but it just seems like an awful lot of effort to clear out the queue and get rid of things that are just untimely at that point.
Yeah, and most of it's all pre-sale tokens, right? So those people are going to close the whitelist or close the sale, so you wouldn't even be able to execute it because I guess they would probably just burn it, but there's no way to get into the sale if the sale's already done.
Right. Okay.
Do you know how customizable the the investment opportunities are? Like, because you said 1 year, and you made it sound like the contracts are all kind of out there and pretty, like, it's pretty said and done. Like, is it pretty, like, do you have any opinion on that? Like, if I didn't want to do 1 year and I want to do 6 months, for example, or like, you know, how much does the community really have for say besides their actual like token voting?
So the community has no say. It's however the actual like investment's done, right? So all of this is pre-sale. So if you got into like the the tribe pre-sale of tokens, like you might, as a VC, all the terms are different. So you might end up with a 1 year lock. It could be a 5 year linear lock where you have 6 month unlock periods, but it's up to the person who makes the proposal of what the protocol is doing. So the protocol is kind of setting their own terms, and then the CULT, the many has the right to either approve or deny those terms. So the Cult's not actually setting their own terms. Like they're not negotiating these contracts directly. They're getting the proposals and then approving them or not approving them. So yeah, there's not a lot of optionality for the Cult. Kind of the downfall of having a smart contract system like this. Anybody else ready to move on?
I have a question about the staking. Have there been any projects that have exited yet? And if not, are they emitting new cult tokens to the stakers to have a 15% APR, or where is that coming from?
That came from here with the distribution piece of the pie right here. So they pre-set up this. They could have the tokens to start launching and have the APY, so people have incentivized to start staking in the first place. But yes, it'll be interesting when this token supply runs out, and then there hasn't been any exits yet. But to answer your question, there's been no exits yet, just investments made.
Yeah, that's interesting. I wonder if they have any smoothing for the cult distributed from successful projects back to the stakers over time, or if you have to have your tokens staked right when they exit and then it's all distributed in a lump sum.
That's a good question. I don't think it's a lump sum. I think it's going into that pool, but there's actually a good question for you, who a little more Solidity knowledge than me, to actually go into I was trying to go through the contract and figure out how that was going to work. Like, is there a mathematical formula? Like, we have 20 million cult and we have 200 stakers total, and we want to have this APY be for a year, so we'll set the emissions to X. So I'm not sure what their mathematical model is for the emission rate.
Yeah, I had a similar question, because you can obviously see that there's an opportunity there to wait and see if it is successful, and then stake to kind of take advantage of the success. So as opposed to what Hunter was describing, which is you kind of have to go ahead and stake and hope. Your expectation is that the investment will make sense, and you get paid at the point after which it becomes clear that it was a success or failure.
Yeah, interesting part is the APY started at 20%. It's down to 15 now. So I'm not sure if that's as the wallet's getting drained, they're slowly lowering the APY, and then maybe they're going to increase the APY as the treasury refills that little kitty of money to keep going to that stakers. But yeah, I couldn't find any mathematical formula to spell this out for me.
I mean, you could obviously snapshot the stakers at points in time, and it's almost like vesting, right? And then once something gets paid out, you can use the snapshot to pay out in those tokens those people that were sort of staked at that point in time previously, which seems awfully complicated, but it at least avoids this the scenario where people kind of arb the known success versus the unknown expectations.
Yeah, it's the interesting part, right? We talk about this a lot when we're doing like different token sales and watching like large whale wallets who are holding, like, say, Solana tokens that are locked up in a linear vesting strategy. And then since it's all smart contract wise, it's public of when these token sales unlocks are going to happen. So there's a strategy right now where you can go ahead and just follow the unlocks and short the token for the week after the unlock, and then or buy back low after the sale happens, because you just assume the VC is going to dump their coins. But you never know with a system like Cult, they're going to dump their coins. It's in the smart contract. So you could also just be following the projects they made, and then you can just fade them. That's another way to play this.
True.
So talking about some projects that got funding so far. Adrenaline, some trading bot strategies or flash bots, as well as grid trading bots. And their tokens basically give you access to passive income. ARK Finance, not to be confused with ARK Invest, which is an American hedge fund. This is a liquidity as a service for DeFi. They bought, this is the interesting part, was they bought Shibaverse, they bought Metaverse land and NFTs, and the NFTs are on a 6 to 18 month time lock, and the land is on a 3-year time lock. So in 3 years, they'll just sell all the Metaverse land. I'm not sure how that works. Are they going to stake them? Are they going to use the Metaverse land to create income that goes back? Are they just holding the NFTs that are there? There's really not any information in the documentation to go through and explain how this is working. But if it is just all smart contract run with no human interaction, then they wouldn't have the ability to go start staking stuff because there's no one in control. So I guess they just bought them and they'll just get sold. But it's a good question of how that would actually work. And they've got PVs, an NFT style Google search. So if you want to find Punk 2675, you can go ahead and just search it. It'll show you what chain it's living on and what marketplace it's listed on, if it is listed. Centralized record label, Web3 wallet. It's a wallet. And then the other side of it is like the really random ones they did. So like DeFi Digital was part of their marketing budget, and they funded them to get commercials and branding materials made. They have an ETH Barcelona sponsorship. They use their charity fund to buy some Pooley NFTs, make a donation to Anonymous, the hacker group. And then here's another weird one too. They bought and staked wrapped Bitcoin. So they used the 13 ETH investment to buy a wrapped Bitcoin and then stake it for an APY. And the APY is going back to the revenue stream, just like any other investment would be. But the fact that they staked it means that someone had control of it, which seems to go against the ethos of having a completely decentralized investment model. So maybe that answer with the NFT metaverse land, that they'll actually use it to make money, that someone does have control, even though it says in documentation no one has control. Maybe the community has control. They were not clear about this.
Couldn't you use smart contract logic to just buy and stake it like automatically without like, couldn't that be baked into the proposal?
It could be, yeah, but they said in the beginning that like the code was never going to be changed. So they would have to do edits to the code, like especially with something like Shibaverse, they'd have to like have edits to the code to make that smart contract execute like land sales and to like stake and activate the land in the games. But the wrapped Bitcoin could be a pretty easy smart contract.
Well, I guess I'm kind of confused how the proposals work then, because what I assumed was the proposal was some sort of like a buy order or something that at least I guess I'm curious how those things are executing, because what I assume is when a proposal goes through, the proposal isn't necessarily, it's not like on the token end, it's just buying stuff. It's like they're proposing a new smart contract that executes something and the token holders are choosing to execute it or not.
Oh, okay, that makes a lot more sense.
That's what I assumed. That could be wrong.
Well, and a year from now, even if you bought the token, you have no clue where the DEX is going to be to sell it, right? I mean, that's an entirely different transaction. So someone's got to either you can't pre-program that in most cases. So I don't know. I mean, it's the same, I think, comment you had about the NFTs, right? It's someone, it goes into some safe, presumably, and then someone's either has to take custody and sell or program for the vault to do the same thing.
Yeah, I would say.
Yeah.
I would agree on this. I mean, okay, you could like ask some oracles, but I think like buying a sponsorship for ETH Barcelona and like buying land on decentralized is like totally different things. I would assume there is manual work involved somewhere.
Yeah, there's no mention of like multi-sig wallets in any of their documentation about how any of this works. And nothing I found said anything about people having direct control. It all said it was 100% decentralized. So maybe that just means that the guardians are voting on these things and executing these transactions. But there was no like multi-sig that I could find that they were using to make these moves.
Crazy. Okay.
Did you see any of the proposals? Like, were the proposals like purely just like text, like this is what we're doing, or was there any contract, or like did you see if there's any like actual code in the proposals?
Now, there's good question. Let's take a look. We're here. The Discord, sorry. Pick it up, I hunted my Discord. Let's see. I'm going to shoot the Discord over to everybody. Check it out. The Discord and the chat for everybody. If you go on there into the proposal section, they have a whole bunch of the information about the proposals that are done, ones that are live, ones that are closed, and then executed ones as well.
I just see black. I don't know if it's just me.
Yeah, the
Black
screen
screen.
sharing isn't working.
Oh, weird. Hang on.
Hey, wait, it's loaded now.
Yeah, I'm not seeing information here is not showing the contracts. Hang on, here we go. Labor Day. No, that's the Discord. Yeah, their Discord is not showing any of like the contracts, just the proposals themselves.
Do you know which governance tool that they use? Do they have their own, or do they use like, I wonder if they use on-chain governance that just automatically executes.
I don't know that answer. I mean, yes, I came for tokenomics. I wasn't ready for governance.
Yeah, that seems to align most with their philosophies. The on-chain governance that just auto executes the smart contract probably just owns the assets and can auto execute based on majority vote.
It's lots of
kind of an interesting way of doing it. How they what I'm reading or what it looks like is yeah, if you bring an idea forward, then you submit like basically like a questionnaire or like some sort of like proposal, and then like guardians can basically like pick up on it and see if, well, this is guardian and an overseer, which I assume is a contributor to the DAO, like an active contributor. But like they make a workshop channel, and then you like workshop through it until like someone actually wants to like put it forward as a proposal. But it's kind of interesting how like that is part of the governance process, because at least from my understanding, looking at governance, like they do, like I feel like most of the processes I've seen mostly are like post this, get feedback, repost. But it's kind of interesting how they just go straight to like make a workshop channel where they talk about it and then post it. I don't know. This is my eyes.
yeah. Just keep saying proposals, centralized community. I can't find any of the actual live voting. Interesting. I'll dig through that and figure that out. And y'all had good questions today. Got me tripped up. They just did an airdrop, speaking of snapshots of people who are holding stuff. We got another manifesto, and you got an airdrop. This is a really interesting one, and I always make sure my VPN is active when I mess with anything that has to do with this. This is called Revolt, and it's almost the exact same model as CULT, but it's about rewarding contributors or anybody who's pushing forward revolution, which we'll get into in a second. But it launched on Polygon. CULT is actually on the main ETH chains. This is a much smaller version of it. Go for it, Amy.
Hey, Joe. So this, I hope this is not a super obvious question with an obvious answer. Why do you keep your VPN whenever you interact with something like this?
I'll show you the next page. So the whole point of this is to like refund people who are working in the community or spreading the mission of it, or people who are revolting. And I'll skip a few ahead and go back and answer your question. Revolt to earn. Part of those things is like damaging public property. I don't know, maybe burning a police car, going and defacing federal monuments. So if you post pictures of you doing like revolutionary activities, they are literally going to pay you in revolt tokens for, burning down a Gucci store. So that's why I use a VPN whenever I interact with this. I assume I'm on some kind of a government watch list now.
All right. Well, that makes sense.
Get back a few. So this is a similar way. Their governance structure is interesting. They call them CULT manders. There's 490 people who stake their revolt tokens who are randomly selected every 15 days to basically approve these transactions. Then they have 10 NFTs they sold that are like permanent people in this group. And those NFT sales help fund the treasury in the beginning, but they're much smaller amounts. So the only amount of funding you can request is between 0.1 and up to 1.5 ETH. And the breakdown is pretty wild. So if you ask for an ETH, you're actually only going to get 40%. Only going to get 40% of what you asked for. 25% of that money is burned. 25% goes back to staking fees. 5% is going to the CULT manders to incentivize them to actually go through the proposals and read through them. And then 5% goes back to the treasury to buy back and burn CULT tokens, not these revolt tokens. There's also a mechanism of this that helps supply the CULT token itself with more buybacks and burns. This is a complicated picture of a very simple model. It's just really showing the amount you can request, but really just goes over the same thing we talked about. Revolt has the exact same 0.4% tax that CULT does. The Treasury collects the fees. It's the same system, except the burn is a lot higher and the amount goes back to people who are actually signing transactions. So they call it the rules of engagement. That's their funding process, but proposals are made by the many. So unlike CULT, where the guardians are making proposals, the many make the proposals in this one. You're allowed to make one every 48 hours, or there's up to 1,000 total can be submitted per 15 days. So if you're one of these CULT manders who are going through and voting on these, you might be looking at 1,000 submissions over a 15-day period. Hence why they're paying people 5% to fund them, because they understand it's your time, it takes money to do it. So they want to make sure you're incentivized to actually read through these proposals. You have 48 hours to vote on something. And if you don't vote, if you're a CULT mander and you don't actually vote on it, you don't get any funding. It's only if you successfully cast a vote for a proposal. And then once they approve it, funding is sent automatically. And it's done fast. And like you talked about, options are leafleting and putting stickers in real life places with the CULT manifesto, or spicy actions like defying the authorities. This is from their manifesto. It's the whole city's on fire is what you did. I know it's beautiful. Talked about actually doing real physical harm to monuments and public property. And they do mention, please don't do anything to mom and pop stores. Keep it classy. Think about who you're affecting as institutions. Blocking train tracks. It's pretty insane model. But it really is just, it's all marketing, absolute marketing. Investing in the revolution. Mr. Modulus has been retweeted on Anonymous's tweet. Anonymous has CULT into their information. They're a partner in this. It's all about destabilizing society and going out and doing damage to the world, which is a pretty crazy idea to use decentralized system to do this. But that's what they're working on, and some more fun community art. That's about all I got. I open the floor for questions, comments. We can dig through some governance and see what their software they're using and what tools to make their votes. Anyone have any questions?
I think the interesting thing about their marketing and story is that it's sort of a yin yang of like building and tearing down. Like their CULT is about building and their revolt is about tearing down. It's kind of a weird dichotomy between those two sides of things.
I didn't think about it like that. That's interesting.
So I actually heard about them like months ago and entered their Discord, and it is kind of like the bigger they grow, the better it is for the community. But I don't really understand how everything that they're doing is actually helping like CULT NFT holders.
What do you mean the NFT holders?
I mean, so like with CULT in general, and I'm pretty sure is that like CULT also has like an NFT, not the one with the guy's face, but like these other space ones or whatever, right? And when I investigated it like early on, like the bigger that it grows, the benefit it is. Like, like the NFT holders are basically your like investors, right? Part of the community. So what I'm trying to understand as investors in the community, how this helps them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, the NFT holders, I think those are just kind of like collectibles people bought for the NFTs, like the Revolt ones they sold. Too far in one direction.
Oh, okay. So I guess I'm just going to reword the question. How does anything they're doing helping the community make increase value of their token?
Oh gosh,
what is the point of this?
Yeah, so the buyback and burn mechanism, these are like crazy deflationary models, because everything they're doing, right? Every time one of these transactions gets approved, like for Revolt or for CULT, when they do like for a CULT token, I'll go way back. No, wrong way.
But to pile on to the question, for Revolt in particular, which has it doesn't appear that any of these proposals necessarily will make money for the Treasury. So all you're doing is burning tokens, eventually just run out of money.
Correct. Yeah. Revolt is not a token meant to make money. It's kind of a community incentive thing. It's the value based on the burn. Yeah.
Do they have capital calls at some point? Because if all you're doing is reducing the denominator, but the numerator is also dropping, then I'm not sure it it just depends on which one is dropping to the greater amount, but I would suspect the numerator is dropping faster than the denominator.
Yes, in their system, like say this 1 ETH here is going through and it actually gets approved, right? So that 0.4 ETH is being sent to the person who made or the proposal was made to, and then 25% of the remaining is being used to buy, because they're using the ETH value, right, to buy CULT tokens, or to buy revolt tokens in this sense, in this model down here, buying it back with ETH and then burning it.
So you've given away 1 ETH to someone, you've burned a quarter of that, which means that you're still your token price is dropping, just not quite as much as if you. I mean, the whole thing's a little actually silly in my opinion, but it's probably fun for some people. But I don't see this as it's just kind of stupid to me. But I'll.
For the revolt token, it doesn't make the revolt token itself doesn't make sense. It's not actually ultra deflationary. It's going to keep on running up over time. It's going to continue to drop the price.
Exactly, and I think that was the original question.
Yeah, but versus like the CULT token is not. The CULT token is a deflationary token. This system will actually continue to burn the supply and continue to refund it through this transaction volume of going through, buying, funding, and then if the actual amount is the investments are returning money, the staking value of the APY will go up, versus even if they go bound, they're still being used to buy back and burn CULT tokens every time one of these transactions is put through. So the tax is being taken to the treasury's buying the ETH is being funded, and they're using the 2.5 ETH to buy back CULT and burn it. So there's always constantly a buy and a burn pressure on the token, which should increase the value over time if people keep using it. But the important part is it has to have this transaction, right? It has to keep being bought, sold, and swapped. Yeah. So until the buzz goes down and it goes away, it should continue to have money dumping in the treasury to keep this flywheel running.
This is just a question to the group, but does anyone in this particular working group care that the burn mechanism is simply a redistribution mechanism, right? So everyone that has tokens, their tokens are now, a proportional claim on the treasury that gets a little bit larger. But that doesn't change the value of the treasury, right? It does redistribute, but if it's because it's a burn, it's just redistributing to everyone in a pro rata amount according to their token holdings. So it doesn't actually accomplish anything. Now there's a psychological effect, and that's why share splits matter, and that's why share, it's the same thing as sort of why share buybacks matter to some degree. But does anyone here actually think that token prices as opposed to market cap are important, aside from fooling people who are not as mathematically literate?
Yeah, man, it's all about the marketing.
Yeah, I would argue the way I look at burning tokens, just like you said, is basically just giving it's the same thing as just giving everybody a little additional CULT token. But I think it can be useful in some contexts. Like in this context, they're differentiating between people who've chosen to stake versus just CULT holders in general. And so I think if the only mechanism you have is to burn tokens, like a lot of these meme coins, it doesn't really make a lot of sense because you're not doing anything essentially. But in a case where you have two separate groups that are differentiated, you're basically, so for the stakers, they're feeling the benefits of the burnt CULT and the benefits of the redistribution of CULT. And then the people who aren't staking are actually getting diluted, but still not diluted as much as they would have otherwise, if that makes sense. So
yeah, I mean, I think it's identical in effect to, let's just eliminate burning entirely, but just say you had an inflationary token, but all emissions went to stakers, then yeah, you're slowly allowing stakers to accumulate the wealth of the non-stakers. And it's sort of the exact same thing is what you're saying.
Yeah, basically I think it's a way to redistribute some of the value back to people who aren't staking, but not as much as those who are staking. If that makes sense, because they're basically capturing some of the value of the of the investment, right? Like,
yeah, no, to your,
yeah.
I think to your point, which is, but it's not recapturing in the following sense that it's already in the treasury. They have, let's say it's sushi. So they have the sushi in the treasury. They sell the sushi. They use it to buy back tokens. They burn some of those tokens, and then others go to the stakers. Well, they could have just eliminated. They don't have to do the whole burn thing. They can just give some proportion of those the sushi in the form of emitted CULT tokens if they wanted to. I mean, there's, and I'm looking. I'm not disputing that it's a useful tool because lots of people do it, and I think it's a great marketing tool because people often concentrate on price and never concentrate on very few people actually concentrate on the value of the entire enterprise. I'm just trying to get my mind. I don't actually think that even in this case, burning does anything that an alternative mechanism with no burn would also accomplish. But maybe the answer is it accomplishes it in some more simplified way.
Yeah, I think it's more efficient just gas wise, like, because the alternative would be you would just be giving people, like, everybody with the CULT token a claim to some pool, I guess, and they would have to claim it manually, or you would have to send the tokens to each address, and then this sort of just captures the value without having to spend gas on every holder.
And that comes from the fact that you're constantly getting, you're basically paying out the investment. So I take your point, and I think that makes sense. So in this case, it's a good way to redistribute the monies in the treasury.
It also goes around the issue of having to deal with like a security basis, right? Because like if you're thinking more like of a traditional finance world, because the users of CULT don't actually have, at least I don't think, have any kind of claim to the treasury, right? Like by buying CULT, you're not buying a part of the CULT DAO. Unlike Bankless DAO, you're not owning a part of the governance structure and owning a part of the treasury. You're just buying the CULT token, and they're letting the benevolent overlords that is the code is letting your token accumulate in value by burning investments, because you're not actually eligible to just go in there and say, hey, I'm rage quitting, give me my hunk of that sushi and the kitty. Like, you don't have any rights to it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, and I 100% agree with what you're saying, but given the fact that it's structured the way it is, you do have a claim on the treasury. It's just that you have to wait until the investment expires. And that's the whole point of it.
Correct.
But yeah, and so I was just thinking in an alternative model, there would be some, but I dropped the question because that makes sense. I get it that this is just another way to pay out in value, but they're using the CULT token in order to do that. So I get that.
Well, how would you do it differently? It's kind of the fun of this is we're all here to like think about this and kind of build something else. How would you change this model, you think, to make it cooler or more efficient?
So the way that the alternative model, and this is abstracting away from the gas, so which I do take as a valid point. But for people that stake, if you emitted CULT and you gave the users that stake CULT more CULT, you are just allowing them over time to gather more of the proportion of total CULT owned. Now the question is exactly your point, which is if and when I decide I'm done with this, how do I go about extracting value out of the treasury? Well, I think you could just as easily use a DEX so a lot of treasuries have effectively use liquidity mining as a treasury management tool, and that's a way that you can allow people to basically withdraw their proportion of the treasury. They just go to the DEX, they sell their CULT for ETH or whatever it may be. That transaction occurs, it devalues the value of the token and at the same time pulls some ETH out of the treasury. So that's another alternative, and you can think of various ways to structure that. But or you could literally have basically a banking window that is a smart contract that allows you to burn your CULT for some amount of monies that are in the treasury. And to Hunter's point, that gets awfully expensive, because if I have 0.01 sushi and 0.01 uni and 0.01 name your token, now I've got a bunch of, fractional tokens, and I'd have to go and trade all of those. I'd rather just do it once. And CULT's a good way to, that's one way to do it effectively.
I'm not sure how it works here. And someone else has an idea. I think Hunter might, but how if that worked. So say you were able to take money, like do a rage quit or burn your tokens to get your part of the treasury back that you had claims to. If they all had different time locks on them, how would that work from a smart contract perspective? Like, could you just take your sushi and sell it and break the time lock, or would those tokens still be locked despite the fact that they now moved addresses? Or could the treasury even move them in the first place if they had a time lock on them?
Yeah, I don't know exactly how. I don't know exactly how their model works, but I think it seems to me that the way this works is that nobody, like the treasury, doesn't ever hold tokens that they're invested in. It seems like the company has to sell their token for CULT and then, I guess, redeposit the CULT into the treasury. And that's kind of interesting. It made me think that this whole model is kind of it hinges a lot on the liquidity providers for CULT, because all of the value lives in the LPs, basically. If the treasury is only transacting in CULT and it only sells CULT for ETH when a proposal is being executed, and then the company buys CULT for hopefully more ETH. If the investment was good, then they'll sell all their tokens and buy CULT with it, and hopefully there's a gain there. And so it's really interesting. I'd be interested to see the liquidity providers, because it seems like the value is not even stored in the treasury. It's all stored in the LPs. Like, I don't know if they really hold how much ETH they hold in their treasury.
Oh, interesting. You're right.
Actually, that's probably akin to what I was describing, where the treasury is managing the LP. So the two are one and the same, right? I'm sorry, CryptoDad, I interrupted you, but so go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, so I'm wondering, what stuff attract people join CULT DAO, join the ecosystem? What's the most attractive things here? Is that because of just the tokenomics mechanism burning thing, or is there anything else to attract the new users or new members?
That's I guess kind of like the marketing brand, right? Of trying to get people in the door for it. But the reason why I guess you would buy it, or at least personally why I bought some CULT tokens, a small amount, and threw it in there staked, is that if this model does work based on the transaction fees, the treasury being redistributed, and then them making these investments, if these investments they make are successful, the token will just slowly, the supply goes down, the price goes up. Like, being a deflationary model, the tokens you hold over time will be worth more money if the product's successful. Now, will it be successful? Who knows? That's why I didn't put a large investment in it. It's a very small part of my DGM portfolio, but it's there as a piece to be like, hey, if it does work, then this token could be worth a lot of money. The guys over at Machinations did a full model of it. I'll share the link in the chat when I'm done. But yeah, the Machinations guys did a full model of CULT DAO, and they basically ran it like if every investment hit properly, you'd have like a 455,000% return if the treasury they have currently right now and every investment was actually a return on capital. And it was a pretty wild model to see them run it at the high end and the low end. And even if all these investments fail, the token will still be worth more than the day you bought it for, as long as there's not large exoduses from the treasury. So it is kind of like a weird model of number go up, but it goes up whether it's successful or not. It just depends on how much. And also depends on how many people get involved. Hence, like, marketing is such a big piece. So you need people to keep buying and staking and not unstaking. If not, the price will keep dropping, and then no one wants to buy it, and then the whole flywheel is destroyed. So it's kind of like a Blockbush article I was reading the other day. It's kind of got some of Ponzi-nomics, where people need to keep coming in to make the system work. But even if they don't, the treasury will keep burning CULT. So it's an interesting model of what will happen in the end. But I'm really curious to see what happens in, say, 5 years. Like, how does decentralized venture capital actually work? Like, can this function properly?
Oh, that's interesting, because I see CULT DAO being there for a while, but then their token basically not rise a lot until ETH Denver. So I don't know what happened there. Maybe they have some new tokenomics models or some like big news issued, published during that event. It just like there's a really very big jump on the price. So do you know if that's because of they changed the tokenomics model, or what happening like during ETH Denver?
I think that was just a general people kept hearing about it, and there was a lot of buzz. People kept buying it, and then when the market crashed, everybody sold all their random stuff to get out of risky positions. I think it's a risk on, risk off thing.
Got it. Yeah, it seems to me that it's really. It seems to me this is not like very sort of a sustainable model, because as Greg said, it seems not creating value from outside. So everything people bet on the system itself gonna create a fortune, but it seems not in a way that create a utility that people willing to somewhere to pay for it. People come here to trade, to swap, to stake only because it's supposed to charge everyone a tax for that. Yeah, it seems to me not a very sustainable way down the road. I don't know. Maybe I understand not in a big picture.
Yeah, it's I'm not sure I fully understand the question, but it's an interesting, how the price is fluctuating. I think it's based on market. It's like anything like Bitcoin too. Like, why is the price going up and down? It's just buying and selling pressure, right? People want it, so the price goes up. People don't want it anymore, the price goes down. It's just supply demand economics.
Got it. Thank you. I think I need to dig more into their model. I joined the meeting late, but thank you so much for sharing all of this great slides and the presentation.
I'm glad you guys had fun. Everybody have a great day. Hopefully I'll talk to you all soon. Amy, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Thanks, Joe.